Hello, everyone out there here on Facebook live stream. It's me, Amanda, with Once in a Wild, and we're getting ready to begin our show that we do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 p.m. Central Time, right here on Facebook Live. Today, as you can see, we're joined by one of our axolotls. His name is Gremlin, and Gremlin is really, really cool. So we're getting ready to begin. As always, the shows are free, of course. The live streams are free, but we are accepting tips via Venmo at Once in a Wild. Is how you can find us on that app, and onceinawild.com. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can find our donate to our cause button, and that will bring you to our Amazon wish list. We also have links for our Amazon wish list on all of our social media as well. It's good to see everybody joining in. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have, comment in with any comments that you may have, and any encouragement and support is always appreciated. It looks like Gremlin's ready for the show, so let's go ahead and begin. Hooray! We're ready to begin. Let's see who has shown up already. It looks like Donna has shown up. Hello, Donna. Welcome to the show. As always, your support is appreciated. So let's go ahead and begin. It looks like we have Gremlin out right now, and he is our axolotl. So let's talk a little bit about axolotls. So the axolotl is otherwise known as the Ambystoma mexicanum. That is their scientific name. So that basically means in Latin, that means Mexican glutton. So this is a type of salamander. Salamanders are a type of amphibian, and this is a truly all-aquatic amphibian. There are a few amphibians that never actually exit the water in their life cycle, but most amphibians go from an egg to a larva or tadpole to a polywog, which means that they're starting to develop legs, maybe lose their tail, depending on the species. Frogs and things like that lose their tails, but salamanders keep their tail. As you can see, he has a tail. Hopefully you guys can see over on Instagram. I know it's a little bit further away than Facebook. But this type of salamander will start as an egg, go to a larva, which is like a tadpole, of course, start becoming a polywog, which means they're growing legs and things like that. And then they kind of just stay that way. So they're going to grow in size. As you can see, he's pretty sizable. He's around this long. I want to say maybe he's like 7 or 8 inches long. He could still keep growing because he is a type of animal that would never stop growing his entire life. He's an amphibian, and amphibians and reptiles keep growing until they pass away. So that's just something that they do. So as long as he's alive, he's going to grow. So he could grow a little bit larger, although he's going to slow his growth now that he's a mature individual. But the difference between this type of salamander and some others, there's a few that are like this out in the animal kingdom, is going to be that he doesn't really ever come out of the water. So most amphibians, once they reach that adult stage, they're going to lose their gills. So those feathery kind of things around his face, see if I can kind of just tickle him. That way he can see his head a little bit better. Sorry to startle you, my love. This doesn't hurt him at all. I probably just startled him. You're okay. He's like, what is happening? I got tickled. So right here in the front, you can see his little gills, and they kind of look like feathery things like this floating in the water. If he were out of the water, they would just droop because they're floating in the water, but he can move them with special muscles and things. But those are his gills. His gills are external, unlike most fish who have like gill slits right here. You know, fish have gills too, of course, because they breathe with water. They breathe oxygen like we do, but they breathe underwater. So they have to have special gills to do so. You can see him flexing his gills here. He kind of does this as he's breathing. That helps him to breathe, and they're very feathery. But those gills are going to exist on almost all amphibians that are developing under the water in one of their life stages. But they will retain their gills. They're going to keep their gills and stay in this neotonic stage that they're in. And they're kind of like a baby all the time, but they're still a mature adult. But that is something that is very different about an axolotl versus other amphibians. Now, you guys have learned the axolotl is Ambystoma mexicanum, which is their scientific name. That means Mexican glutton. So where that comes from is they are from Mexico. These guys exist only in one water system in Mexico City, Mexico. And that is a Xochimilco river system or canal system in Mexico City. It is a freshwater system, and it is very, very cold. The temperatures out there range anywhere from 40s to 60s. So that is actually what an axolotl prefers. They do not prefer warmer water. They don't need a heater if you keep one. You actually want to keep them cold. So anywhere from 40s to 60s is going to be the preferred. They can go up to the 70s and be okay, but that's not ideal for them. So it's best if you have one to actually keep a fan on their water. You can actually have a little fan on top that cools the water all the time, or you can get a chiller for them, which is a little bit more expensive than a fan, or you can keep your house very, very cold, which is another way to keep them cold. Let's see who's tuning in on Facebook. We've got Donna tuning in so far, and she's tagging a lot of her friends, which is really, really helpful. Let's go ahead and take this name away so you can see some of our information down below while we discuss. So the axolotl is a fantastic animal, and this is actually the color that they are in the wild. You guys might have seen Ghost, our other axolotl, in another program, and Ghost was actually a golden albino. So she is a very, very light coloration with red gills. So sometimes gremlins' gills will be more red, like maroon, but they're never going to be bright red like Ghost's gills. And you've probably seen pictures of albino axolotls or leucistic axolotls. The difference between leucistic and albino is the color of their eyes. So axolotls that are leucistic and albino look almost the same except for their eye color. So on a leucistic, they would have black eyes or dark eyes, and on an albino, whether they be golden or traditional albino, they're going to have light eyes, just like all albinos have. Most albino animals have red or very, very light eyes. So he's the coloration that they would actually be in the wild, which makes a lot of sense, right? He's very, very dark. He has kind of a spotted or kind of varied pattern all over his body, and that's going to help him camouflage. So in the Xochimilco river system or canal system in Mexico City where they live in the wild, the water is very, very dark. It's very, very dirty. It's very swampy. And that's going to help them to blend right in, especially when they are tiny baby axolotls, right? So when they come out of the egg, they're going to be a little larva that's going to help them to blend in if they're that dark color, because a lot of predators will try to eat them. And they're very vulnerable to predators. Pretty cool. Now these guys do look kind of like a leopard pattern if you get close on them. Maybe I can show you guys a little bit on Instagram what I'm talking about. So you can kind of see him a little bit better here, right? He's walking away. As you can see, this tank is very small. Don't worry, this isn't what he lives in all the time. He actually lives in a great big tank behind the scenes, and he has a lot to do in his tank. This is very bare, but it's just so you can see him so he doesn't hide for the program. Pretty cool, huh? You can see kind of a rear view there. So there's a on Instagram, there's a reflection of him. You see him twice. But yeah, they have that beautiful camouflage to help them hide. Now, the axolotl, unfortunately, is a critically endangered animal, and the next step in that classification is going to be extinct in the wild. So they are almost extinct in the wild, and they are very, very, very rare. So fortunately, though, they are extremely lots of them is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of them in the care of humans. So they breed very well. They do very well in the care of humans. So there's a lot of them in zoos and in the care of humans in general, maybe even for pets and things like that. So they breed very well. They do very well. So we can actually keep the axolotl species going by having them in our care as zookeepers and things like that. And they're very, very important animals because, again, they are critically endangered. So just to give you a little bit of a picture of how they are doing in the wild, which is not great, and I'll tell you why here in a little bit. The axolotl, about 20 years ago, there used to be about 6,000 per square kilometer in the Xochimilco river system or canal system. And that number in 20 years has gone down from 6,000 individuals per square kilometer to 35 individuals per square kilometer. So in 20 years, they've gone from 6,000 to 35 per square kilometer. That is really, really bad. And that is all because of man-made reasons. So we like to talk a little bit about conservation here once in a while. So we want to talk to you guys about how you can help animals out there in nature and why they need our help and what we've done wrong in the past and what we can do better. So axolotls are a really great example of that because they're not doing well in the wild, but we can indeed save them. So what happened in the first place? Well, first of all, they only live in one very, very small area of Mexico City. Like I said, they live in one river system / canal system in Mexico City. It is also a very specialized temperature. It's a specialized water system. It is fresh water. It's very murky. They prefer murky, dirty, swampy water, not crystal clear, beautiful water like we would all like kind of want if we were deciding. But if you think about it, it's going to keep them less safe if they're in crystal clear water. If they are in murky water, they can hide better. So what happened, for one, there's a few things that happened. Number one is pollution. So since that river system in Mexico City is so close to the city, a lot of the toxins and things like that that were being washed into, say, the storm drain and things like that, they eventually led down all the way to where the axolotls live. And all those toxins and pollutions and things like that went into the river system. And if you know much about fish too, but especially amphibians, they have very, very absorbing skin. Their skin is slimy. It is very, very sensitive. They have a slime coat all over their body, which helps them to be nice and streamlined in the water and very slick and slimy and swim really fast. It also helps their skin to be protected from predators and things like that. They can actually they taste really gross with some amphibians. They taste like nasty with their slime coat, but that helps them to keep healthy. So, but what that also does is they absorb a lot of things from the water. So if there are dirty things in the water, they're going to absorb that, and that is going to make them sick. So that's one thing that started happening. Their river in general became basically poisoned, toxic for them. That affected all kinds of animals in that river system, including our sweet amphibians over here that are becoming critically endangered now and almost extinct in the wild. So another thing that happened is general plastic pollution, all kinds of things that got thrown into the river or just made their way down into the river over time. So even if something gets thrown into the street, it's really important to pick up trash, because when you toss your trash into the street and it rains, then that water will kind of wash it into the storm drain and then goes all the way eventually into the river systems where animals live. And even animals living in cities get caught up in trash and eat trash, and it's really, really bad for them. So we need to do our best to be clean and to not be selfish as a species, right? We want to make sure and be clean, keep the environment clean. Another thing is air pollution. Air pollution actually affects water too, because it goes up into the clouds and then it rains down and it's dirty, right? So air pollution is a big deal. So, the less general footprint that we leave in nature is definitely beneficial to all animals, including amphibians. Amphibians actually are kind of like the canary in the coal mine. You guys know what that means? The canary in the coal mine, back in the old days when even maybe now, I don't know what they do now, but back in the old days when coal miners used to go down into the coal mine, they would bring a bird with them in a bird cage. It could be a canary or anything. Canary in a coal mine was the easiest thing to kind of coin. So pet canary or sparrow or whatever they wanted to bring, they would bring it in a little bird cage. And birds are also very, very sensitive to toxins in the air. So if there were fumes coming up from the depths of the coal mine, that bird would become affected and actually start freaking out or even die before a human becomes infected, because we are much less sensitive than birds and especially amphibians. Amphibians are the canary in the coal mine for all of the earth. They are so sensitive to changes in the environment. So if you see an environment where there's lots of amphibians running around and they're healthy, they're having babies, they're doing really well, that tells you that the environment's pretty healthy. That's a really good thing for all of us and for all of the animals all over the world. We can see that evidence tells us that it's healthy. Does that make sense? So they're very, very important. So what happens most of the time is amphibians tend to get the worst part of, they're affected first when it comes to something being toxic in the environment, trash, all kinds of bad things. They show us first. So toxins, trash. Also a big deal was invasive species. So there are many invasive species all over the world that are not good for the environment. And for the axolotl, they live underwater, right? They live in fresh water. So all over Mexico, to my understanding, this is what I was told when I was studying these guys and from scientists studying them, is that all over Mexico and all over the world, I'm not like calling out Mexico or anything. We love Mexico. No problem. No hate at all. No shade. All over the world, humans have enjoyed fishing, right? So a lot of times we don't want to go fishing for just whatever. We want to put fish in the environment that's more fun to fish, like tilapia and carp and big fish like that. So in the river system nearby in Mexico City and surrounding areas, there were fish such as carp and tilapia and other things that were actually put into the water for human sport so we could go fishing and have fun. Well, what that actually did was put invasive species or species that don't belong there into the system, into the water, into an environment where they shouldn't be. So carp, tilapia, and all those fish are very, very large. They can eat the axolotl. They can eat all kinds of things. They can eat the axolotl is a predator too, and they eat worms and fish and all kinds of things. If those carp and tilapia, those animals that shouldn't be there, they have not adapted to this environment. They're not part of the ecosystem. They've been in there eating everything. And carp and tilapia, they get huge, and nothing this small or around this size can eat them. They're just going to take over, and they're going to be basically almost the only thing living there within reason. There's going to be insects and things and other animals, but that is very, very bad too. So they ended up eating axolotls. They would eat baby ones. They would eat adult axolotls because axolotls only get about this big. Carp get huge, and tilapia get really, really big too. and also they're eating all of their food. So that's another problem. Again, they already started with just one tiny area where they live in, and so they already had a lot of pressure on them to keep that environment nice and healthy and good for them. So those are some factors that have brought the axolotl in 20 years from, that many individuals, about 6,000 per square kilometer, all the way down to 35 per square kilometer. Not good. Very, very, very bad. There used to be thousands and thousands and thousands of them because they do very, very well. They're very good survivors. They're called the Mexican glutton. They eat anything that fits into their mouth. That is their scientific name. Embystoma mexicana means Mexican glutton, like I said earlier. So they're really good survivors. Axolotls are amazing animals, so we need to keep them around, right? So what they're doing right now over in the area where they're from in Mexico, scientists are actually breeding them in the care of humans some more. We want to make sure that those wild genes stay pure and everything, because a lot of times when animals are in the care of humans, they become inbred and things like that, and we want to make sure that those wild genes are staying wild, and that's the original genes. It's like one of our animals is ready to come out already. We're talking about axolotls right now. Have patience. What was I saying? They are breeding them over there, making sure the genes stay pure, make sure it's the right wild type of axolotl, all of that, all good things. And they are trying to clean up the environment over there, educating the public, making sure that we don't litter and dump toxins into the water as much and things like that. And little by little, we're trying to make the environment over there, as humans, we're trying to make the environment healthier, and eventually we'll start re-releasing some of them into the wild, although it's going to take a lot of time because of all the damage that we've already caused over there, unfortunately. In very, very little time, we have depleted the species almost to extinction, which is unfortunate. So yeah, so everybody knows about other endangered species like pandas and tigers and all kinds of popular species, but a lot of people are unfamiliar with our little amphibians that really need our help too. So how can we here in America, most of you, you might be watching from Mexico, and that's even better. Mexico, America, same, we're in the same continent, so it's awesome. How can we help all over the world, no matter where you're listening from? Well, that is to, number one, educate yourself on how we can do better. One thing is to use a lot less plastic. We don't want to ever wash our chemicals down to where they shouldn't be, into the storm drain and things like that. Don't use very, very toxic weed killer like Roundup and things like that. If you're spraying that all over your yard, that is straight poison. Roundup is terrible. Don't use it. It's really bad for you. If you breathe it in or eat it somehow, you're going to get very, very sick. And if we get sick, surely that the amphibians in our environment are going to get sick too. And that is going to go into the environment, into the water where these guys live. Every animal needs water, and everything needs water to live and fresh air. So we want to make sure not to wash our chemicals or use harsh chemicals. And if we do, we dispose of them properly, right? We want to use less plastic. So saying no to plastic bottles, plastic straws, plastic bags. Those are 3 things that we can surely eliminate in our life. I like to use reusable cups and things and reusable straws instead of all of that. It's a lot less litter, a lot less trash. We can recycle whenever we can. If you cannot avoid using plastic all the time, you can just try to recycle those things and make sure that it gets recycled, right? And then less and less of that stuff will be in the environment to hurt animals. Okay, so we have questions. Let's see. Oh, Teresa says, hey. Hey, Teresa. What are my favorite animals? Is that your question, Donna? Well, I'll just go ahead and answer that. So the axolotl is actually one of my favorite animals, but that is really hard to answer because I have so many favorites. I really like reptiles and amphibians, and I really like birds, or another animal that I really like to work with. But I have so many favorites, and you're actually going to see a few of them here today. I have so many favorites. I have a passion for animals that are either less known or less liked than some of the other more charismatic, obvious animals like elephants and tigers and, all those animals that everybody seems to love. I like to speak for the animals that are a little bit strange, like axolotls. So one really cool thing about axolotls is they have superpowers. So they are kind of like the superheroes of the amphibian world. And there are other animals that can do this too, but the axolotl can actually regenerate. You guys have seen Deadpool, right? Or you've heard of Deadpool, those little kids out there. Please don't watch Deadpool. It is not rated for you. But you parents out there have probably seen Deadpool. So what can Deadpool do? He can regenerate his arms and legs and body parts, right? Oh my goodness. So the axolotl can do the same thing. If this axolotl is swimming around in nature, being an axolotl, being really cute, and they get their gill snagged on a branch or something like that, and it comes off. Oh my gosh, my gill has come off. Maybe 2 gills have come off. What am I going to do? Well, an axolotl actually will regenerate or regrow those gills. But guess what? It gets better. There's more. They can regenerate anything on their body. As long as that animal is still alive, if that animal gets bitten in the side of the head by a predator, they can regenerate their entire side of the head as long as they survive, and the brain and the skull and the gills and everything that happened to them. It'll grow back. Isn't that amazing? And it doesn't even take that long. It's just like maybe a month that it takes to grow back, little by little. You know, still pretty cool. If he loses his tail, it can grow back. If he loses an arm or leg, it can grow back. Scientists have been studying axolotls for a long, long time to see if we can maybe apply that to human medicine, because how cool would it be is if we needed a new heart, if we could just regrow our heart, because they can do that. Isn't that incredible? He's going away, but I'm sure he'll be back in just a minute. It's not that big of a place for him to yeah, everything. They can regrow everything. Isn't that incredible? And they're also one of my favorites because they're so unusual because of the whole not growing up thing. They're kind of like the Peter Pan of the amphibian world. They never grow up, but they become mature adults somehow and still do have babies. When these guys do have babies, they have quite a few of them. So a female will have, anywhere from 60 to 100 or so babies every time she lays eggs. So they do lay little eggs that are soft, and they're going to be in the water. Typically, they'll lay them kind of like on plants, so they're sticking to the plants. And then I believe like in a month or so, they hatch out. I think it's around a month, maybe like a few weeks to a month. And they come out and they're little tadpoles, just like frogs are. And then they start growing legs and everything else. And at that point, then they start, they just grow as their whole body at that point. Like they'll stay as the same shape as this. This is what they look like when they start growing their legs and whatnot after becoming a polywog type animal. He's looking at me so cute right now. Hi, sweetheart. This is Gremlin, by the way. If you guys miss his name, it is an axolotl. And he's a wild type axolotl, which is how they look in the wild. Pretty cool. They are dark and blend in very, very easily. Do we have any questions about anything else? What are y'all's favorite animals? You can chime in with some of y'all's favorite animals, and I'll try to tell you something about them. How would that be? I know a lot, so you can try to stump me with an animal question. Right now we're talking about axolotls. Over here on Instagram, I have a question. Do axolotls ever get mistaken for blind salamanders? Yeah, I've had a few people maybe mix them up when they're talking about them. Like, for example, the Texas blind salamander is a very, very similar species. They're not as large. They're smaller than the axolotl. They're also colorless. So those Texas blind salamanders live in cave systems and places where you never see the light of day. So they never really develop color. They kind of look like an albino all the time. They're white, colorless, almost see-through. You can see their organs and things. Pretty cool. They're a little more slender, but they're very, very similar to the axolotl. Pretty neat. Great question. Very, very closely related. Yeah. What kind of food do they eat? What a great segue, because I'm going to go ahead and feed him once he comes back. I'll let him circle back around maybe, and we'll try to feed him once he's back over here so you guys can see. I have a little treat for him today, and then I have some of his regular diet. So out there in nature, their scientific name is the Mexican glutton, Ambystoma mexicana. That means they're from Mexico, but they eat all the things. So anything that fits into their mouth, they will try to swallow it and eat it. So that could be a small fish. That could be another axolotl or a baby axolotl. They're not super loyal to their species or anything like that. They eat worms, they eat bugs, anything that they can fit into their mouth. So of course not carp and tilapia, those fish are too big. So, but they will try to eat anything that fits into their mouth in the wild. So in the care of humans, the best diet for them is a carnivore pellet diet, which is made for some fish and also amphibians. And it's a sinking pellet that they can catch in the water, and also earthworms and night crawlers and things like that. On occasion, they can be given things like waxworms for treats, which is what I actually have for him today. So once he comes back around, he might get a waxworm, and we'll see how he eats it, and then we'll give him some of his pellet diet. So here's a question on Facebook. I noticed when I was a child that tadpoles sometimes live in small pools of water. How do they survive when it dries up before fully formed? Well, if that water dries up, they won't survive. So some frogs and other amphibians will actually take care of their young. This type of amphibian doesn't take care of their young. They're not loyal to their families or anything like that. They will actually eat their babies if they stick around, so not great. But they for example, the the African bullfrog, oh, he's coming back around. The African bullfrog will actually dig a little canal for water to come back into where they are. So the African bullfrog lives in Africa, and if the tadpoles are still growing and the polywogs are still growing while it's still in the dry season and there's not enough water in that muddy pond where they are, dad African bullfrog, who protects his babies until they're grown, he will actually start digging and digging and digging and make water come in from another area into their pond. So but if they don't have that happen, or if it doesn't rain enough, another thing that affects them is climate change. So climate change can warm the earth, right? These guys are cold weather. They prefer anywhere from 40 to 60 degrees in their water, very, very cold. They like cold water. So the climate is warming, so that affects them too. And if climate change affects our rainfall, or there's too much or too little rainfall, I guess too much rainfall is not a bad thing for an amphibian, but if there's too little, for sure, they won't survive. That is a great question, a great thing to bring up. Let's go ahead and feed him before he moves. And before I just talk forever, I have some special treats for him. Like I said, they are wax worms, and he really likes them. Looks like he's ready. Here's the worm. Y'all see it? It is alive. Ooh, worm. Okay, let's get ready. See if he sees it. Don't drop it, Amanda. Come here, buddy. You want the worm? Would you like a worm? Oh, he doesn't want it. Oh, there he goes. Haha. He got the worm. Hope you guys could see that okay. We'll feed him another one, because it's a very small worm, so he can have a few of them. Now, wax worms are only a treat item. They're not really a whole lot of nutrition, and they are very fatty, but they tend to really like them. So I wanted to make sure and bring something that he likes to be able to show you how he eats. Let me see. Who else has questions? As you can see, they just kind of suck the food into their mouth really, really fast. They don't have really any teeth. They just have very, very hard palates in their mouth. I have been accidentally bitten by these guys a couple of times when just like cleaning and things. And it doesn't hurt. It just surprises you, but they don't have any teeth really. So most amphibians don't have traditional teeth at all. There's a few that do, but it's pretty rare. Are you finished eating? He's like kind of munching on it still. They're very, very cute. Now, these guys don't have great vision, but they can see, and they can feel the movement of the water. That's how they're usually going to kind of sense their prey. And they can also smell underwater too. Don't try to smell underwater as a human, because you will drown. That's called drowning. Is it your pet? Good question. So all of our animals here at Once in a Wild, we have around 70 animal ambassadors, and that includes fish and axolotls and insects, bugs, and birds and mammals, reptiles, amphibians, all kinds of things. We have about 70 of them that participate in our animal encounters. They're not really our pets. They are working animals, but we do keep them here with us, if that makes sense. So they are animal ambassadors is what I like to call them. We do also have just pets too. We have 3 dogs as well. And 4 dogs if you include my mom's dog, who also lives with us. So let's see if he'll eat another one. You want another one? Come here. Everybody wants to see you. Let's try to nudge him over first. He's being a little shy. Well, I think he just doesn't realize that, they don't know where the camera is. They don't know what's going on. I'm just going to try to spin him around first. Woo! See how they kind of float? Very, very buoyant. There we go. There he is. You want to eat the worm? No? He's like, no, you're messing with me too much. There we go. All animals can be trained. He definitely knows what the feeding tongs are. I do feed him worms sometimes on these feeding tongs. And in a way, he is trained in that way, and all animals can be trained. Pretty cool. What else do we have going on? Do you guys have any questions about him before we move on to our next animal? Oh, the name for in Mexico is ajolote. Ajolote is how you say axolotl in Mexico. Very, very good. Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Thank you guys for sharing and tagging all of your friends. And thank you for your encouragement. It's very, very appreciated. Okay, we'll go ahead and feed him just his regular food, and I'll show you that too. And maybe he'll eat it, maybe he won't. But he's going to be out here the whole time, just kind of swimming around and doing his thing. We'll let him be cute on the table. How's that? We're going to give him a few more pieces of food. This is his regular healthy diet that he gets, and he'll just eat that at his leisure. How's that? And we'll go ahead and move on to our next animal. The axolotl is fantastic. One of my favorite animals, needing a lot of help. And it's very, very important to support places that have axolotls, like zoos and aquariums that breed them and do conservation work with them. It's always really, really important to support your local zoo or aquarium. Okay. Here in San Antonio, we have the San Antonio Zoo, who does a lot of work with reptiles and amphibians. They are very, very good at doing that. So very good place to support. If you guys want to support us, there's always Venmo, and there's always our Amazon wish list. It's very, very much appreciated. But our shows here are free, and we don't really expect anything. We're just trying to share our animals with you guys. Let's go ahead and move on to our next animal, and I think you guys will really like it. Some of y'all might have met her before. So our axolotl is a male, but this is actually a female animal. So this here is Blondie. If I bring her back like this, people on Instagram can see her. Blondie is just waking up. There she is. So Blondie is an Arizona Blonde Tarantula, and her scientific name is down below on Facebook. It is Aphonophelma chalcotis, which is a Latin name, of course, just like all scientific names come from Latin. I think they're mostly Latin derivatives. And what her scientific name means, Aphonophelma chalcotis, it means quiet feet because they have soft little feet. And the chalcotis part just means brassy colored or blonde colored. That is what their scientific name means. Quiet feet and brassy colored. Pretty cute. I think tarantulas are adorable. So this is a Arizona Blonde. Does anybody want to guess where they're from? Arizona Blonde. It's pretty obvious. They're from Arizona. So they're from the United States. This is more of a dry or desert dwelling species. And they are found in dry deserts and all kinds of places like that. Maybe even forests and things in Arizona and surrounding states. These guys are not an endangered species, which is fantastic. Now, a lot of people might be nervous around spiders, but there are many, many spiders which are totally harmless to humans. In fact, there are only a fraction of them all over the world, out of all the spiders in the world, that are dangerous to humans. So most spiders don't want anything to do with a human. In fact, no spider wants to come after you and attack. That is not true. And all spiders are beneficial to humans in one way or another. So spiders are, of course, predators too, just like the axolotl, but spiders eat things like insects and bugs and whatnot. So they're going to eat harmful pest animals like flies, mosquitoes, roaches, animals that can potentially harm us with diseases. And we definitely don't want any diseases or parasites, right? So the more predatory arachnids like spiders and scorpions that we have, the less of those pest animals that we have too. So spiders are actually very, very beneficial to humans. And as you can see, she's very, very sweet. She means us no harm. And some people are saying, but they're very, very sweet. Did you know that spiders have hair, just like mammals have hair? So not all animals that have hair are mammals. Spiders also have hair, and they use their hair for many, many different things. I'm going to hold her where it's a little bit more comfortable for her and me, and for people on Instagram to be able to see. If I go like that, you can see her a little better. So spiders use their hair to, of course, feel and touch. Spiders have very different senses than we do. So their sense of hearing is brought to them via those hairs. So the hairs will basically help them hear, and the hairs will help them feel, of course. They are predators, so they need to be able to feel their prey out. That is their main sense, is a sense of touch. And they don't have traditional ears. There's no ears on her, right? No ears on the side of her head or anything like that. But they are going to be able to hear by using their hairs. And they also don't really have a sense of smell, but those hairs will actually help them smell too. Now, I'm not an entomologist, so I can't tell you every little thing about their senses, but I was told that all of that is true. Also, they do have eyes, and spiders actually have 8 eyes for the most part. Most spiders have 8 of them. They are very, very tiny. You see her little eyes there? They're all the way in the front and all the way on the top of her head. Those eyes are not very good at seeing. They are mostly for shadows and movement, which is good enough if you have all those hairs to help you with most of your sensing of your prey. Shadows and movement are all you really need to see if you are a predator living underground most of the time, because this type of tarantula and most type of tarantulas live in a burrow or underground in the dark, and they are also nocturnal. So this type of tarantula you wouldn't really see in the daytime unless it was breeding season, and that's when the males are ready for love and they're looking for females. So if you ever see here in Texas, especially, we have Texas tarantulas and all kinds of great big spiders like that. A lot of people are afraid of them when they come out and run around, but that is usually during the breeding season. And they're not out to hunt anything, and they're not out to hurt you. They're just looking for females. They're looking to have a female so they can have babies, right? Now, male tarantulas also don't live very long. So when they're ready for breeding, they're like, hey, I don't have very long. I might as well get out there and take my chances. Because for them, being out there is going to be very, very vulnerable because a lot of animals also eat them. Even though they are predators, that doesn't mean they don't have predators, just like we talked about with the axolotl. Axolotls have predators. Anything that's bigger than them in the water, like those invasive species, those carp and tilapia, can eat them. But a tarantula or any spider, anything that's larger than them, they could potentially eat the spider. So being out and about and out of your burrow is very, very dangerous for them. But they have to go find those ladies to be able to procreate, right? So that is very important to them too, especially with a shorter lifespan. So a male tarantula, usually this type of tarantula, terrestrial type tarantula, only lives about 5 or 6 years, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on genetics. And in the wild, they're going to probably live less than they would in the care of humans because they're not protected by us and getting free food and vet care and all that if they need it. So out there in the wild is fair game, of course. They have to hunt for themselves as well. So that's also very risky. But they don't live very long. So the females will live into their 20s or more. And a male, like I said, 5 or 6. So, ooh, does he sleep? Are you asking about the axolotl or the tarantula? Well, I'll just answer for both. The axolotl doesn't have eyelids, so they don't really go to sleep all the way. I don't believe a tarantula has eyelids either. So probably the same answer for both. So they kind of just rest, and they, I believe they kind of zone out, kind of like a snake does. Snakes will do the same thing sometimes. They'll kind of zone out and just rest as much as they can. They don't have any eyelids. A lot of animals don't have eyelids. Can it be a pet? Axolotls can be a pet sometimes, and so can tarantulas. So yes, sometimes. Now, there's nothing wrong with having an exotic pet. We're not necessarily saying that that's bad or anything like that, but we want to make sure you do all of your research because every pet or animal companion deserves the best care that you can possibly give them. If you guys ever need help with animal care, please text or message me. I'm very happy to help. Let me see. What does it eat? Are we talking about the tarantula? So tarantulas will eat other insects, or insects. They're not insects, they're arachnids, but they'll eat insects and other arachnids sometimes. Larger tarantulas will sometimes eat small mammals and lizards and things like that. But this type of tarantula is mostly an insect eater. They will eat other tarantulas too and other spiders as well. They're not loyal to their species, just like the axolotl wasn't. They are cannibalistic. So tarantulas, as well as axolotls, are solitary in the wild. They only come together for breeding or if they have babies. Now, after they go through their breeding, mom tarantula can have up to 200 eggs, and mom tarantula will actually watch over the eggs while they are in her egg sac. So all spiders can make, well, not all spiders, there's like wolf spiders and things that don't do this, so I take it back. But most spiders can actually make webbing even if they don't make a web. So this type of tarantula is terrestrial. They live underground or on the ground only. They don't climb very much at all. It might be able to climb like a rock or something like that, or a fallen tree trunk or something, but nothing major. They're a terrestrial species. So underground in a burrow is where they usually live. They'll live in a hollow log, in a burrow underground that another animal has made. They might even dig a little burrow for themselves, but usually they're going to adopt a hole they've already found and kind of, just live in there. And like I said, these female tarantulas can live into their 20s or so. So they might even live in different places throughout their life, depending on the situation. But they will make webbing that's more like a carpet. It kind of is more comfortable for them to kind of live in, and it also helps them to feel their prey. If that prey walks across the blanket of webbing that they've created, like a little carpet, they can feel the prey walking around. So they are ambush predators. They live inside their den or burrow, and then they come out if they feel a bug walking by, or if a bug walks into their den, that is fair game for them to eat them. Super duper cute. Her name is Blondie, by the way, if you guys missed her name. It is Blondie, the Arizona Blonde Tarantula. So what I was saying about them having babies is when this type of tarantula and some other ones too, when they want to have babies, they make a little purse or sack out of their webbing, and they lay all of their eggs inside that little egg sack. They guard the egg sack until they hatch, and then those baby tarantulas will kind of wander off once they hatch and be on their own. They're very, very tiny little babies, and they can have around 200 babies. Pretty cool, or less sometimes, just depends. Very, very cool. What else do we have going on here? Oh, thank you for your support. So Lydia says, my 8-year-old is loving your show. Shout out to your 8-year-old. If anybody wants to let me know whose kids are watching, that would be a lot of fun. I always like to see what kiddos are enjoying the show. And please, if anybody has any questions, feel free to chime in with your questions or your comments. Maybe you guys have favorite animals of your own and you want to ask me questions about your favorite animal. That would be a lot of fun. And of course, we always accept any suggestions for the show or animals that you guys maybe want to see. We have all kinds of animals here at Once in a Wild. And if you guys have suggestions of what you would like to see, please let me know. Well, Blondie has been a fantastic ambassador for her species. Again, spiders are very, very good for us. There's only a few different spiders that you should avoid. And one is the black widow. Black widows are very, very venomous. All spiders are venomous, but black widows are very venomous to humans and can be dangerous. So are brown recluse, and so are brown widows. There are brown widows, black widows, and brown recluse. Those are the 3 that I always recommend people avoiding or, of course, getting out of your house if you have some. Otherwise, did you know that most spiders, other than that, are totally harmless, if not, at least mildly, not even that big of a deal to get bitten by. So it wouldn't be a big deal. And they also offer a lot more benefits than harm to humans. So they are going to hunt all the bugs in your home and around your garden and around your backyard and make your area pest-free. If you have like a jumping spider in your house, those jumping spiders are very, very, very cute, in my opinion. Very smart for a spider. They have better vision than these guys, so they see a lot, and they're always thinking about how they're going to hunt. So spiders don't have a brain. They have a totally different system inside of their body. But there is theory that the jumping spiders and some other arachnids can actually learn how to hunt and things like that. Something that we don't really quite understand. Some other spiders like tarantulas are more primitive, so they don't really learn per se, but they can definitely adapt to new situations. That doesn't mean that they're dumb just because they're different than us, right? And just because they have 8 legs and not 2 legs doesn't mean we should discriminate against them. A lot of animals are just misunderstood instead of understood, and so a lot of people are scared of them, right? Unfortunately, but just because they're different than us doesn't mean that we should hate them or kill them, right? So most spiders we should just leave alone. If you guys have a spider in your house, you can either leave it alone or you can shoo it out the door with maybe a piece of paper and a cup or something like that and just let them live. That's what I recommend. We want to let animals live in our environment. Now, features of arachnids. So arachnids are spiders and tarantulas, and scorpions are another example of arachnids. So arachnids have 2 body parts. Let's show you guys a little aerial view here on Facebook. Arachnids have 2 body parts. She's got her cephalothorax here with her eyes on top, and she's got her abdomen. So the cephalothorax and the abdomen, those are 2 body parts on a spider, or all arachnids, and her 8 legs. So she has 2 body parts and 8 legs instead of 3 body parts and 6 legs like a insect has. Does that make sense? So cephalothorax and abdomen, 2 body parts, and she has 8 legs, and all spiders also have 2 arm-like appendages called pedipalps. So you'll notice that she has 8 legs and 2 arms in the front, 2 kind of like grabbing arms like this. They're smaller than her legs. Pretty cool. Those pedipalps are like on a scorpion, what you would see as their claws. But for a spider, they're just like 2 little arm-like appendages, which they use to grab prey and bring them in. And they have fangs. Tarantulas have fangs, which they kind of tuck under their chin. And they have chelicerae, which are those kind of mustache-looking things in the front of their face. And that is what holds all their venom. And underneath is their fangs. Let's see if she can actually show you her fangs. She's such a nice spider that I feel comfortable kind of holding her up. Can you see her fangs there? They're kind of tucked up underneath. See them? They're right there. They're right there. See her fangs? You guys on Instagram want to see? See the fangs? They're just kind of tucked up underneath like 2 little black nails. Hopefully that's in focus. Cool, huh? She is such a nice spider that I can just hold her like that. She doesn't even care. But they kind of tuck them up underneath, and when they want to use them, they just stick them out. And their chelicerae, which is that, it reminds me of like a mustache in front of her face. That's where they store all their venom. But this type of spider is not very toxic to humans, so I'm not really worried about it. Even if she were to bite me, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it is toxic to things like crickets and roaches that she would eat. Here, Once in a Wild, her favorite food are crickets. I've tried to get her to eat roaches and other things, but she just doesn't like them. She's very picky, and that's okay. We love you anyway. Well, she's been fantastic. Once again, this is Blondie, the Arizona Blonde Tarantula, a native of North America. And they live in Arizona and surrounding states in the US. So that might be one that you might see right here in the United States, depending on where you're from. And they are excellent animal ambassadors and very, very sweet tarantulas. Does anybody have any questions about the tarantula before we say goodbye for now? Not to me, just to the tarantula. Let's see on Instagram. I might have answered some of your questions already just by talking about her. Let me see. Ooh, I have suggestions on our animals, maybe for the next show. A leopard gecko or a bearded dragon. I will take that into consideration. We might have some more lizards on the show. Let's see what else. I thank each and every one of you on Instagram and Facebook for tuning in today. For those of y'all just joining us, my name is Amanda with Once in a Wild, and this is Blondie. She's going to say see you later and go down and rest for a little bit. By my feet here, surrounded in animals today, as usual. But she's done a great job, as always. Tarantulas are amazing, and we have several of them here once in a while because we love them. Okay. I don't think that Gremlin likes his food. He might be full, huh? You want to feed him one more worm? Let's see how that goes. Let's see. I've spoiled him today. He also ate yesterday, so I'm not really expecting him to eat very much. There you go, buddy. Worm. Yeah, of course he's going to eat the worm because it's a treat. He's like, I don't want the food. I just want the treat. Typical. Okay, guys, we got one more animal for our presentation. Once again, we learned about the axolotl. His name was Gremlin. We learned about the Arizona Blonde Tarantula. Her name was Blondie, right? And we have one more animal that we're going to learn about. Okie dokie. So our last animal is very different than the first two in many ways. And she's a lot larger. This is actually my largest lizard that we have here at Once in a Wild. And she is one of our oldest residents here. She's been with me for a long, long time before Once in a Wild was even open. And she is my iguana, Joanna the iguana. There she is. For those of you on Instagram, you can already see her. It may take her a couple of seconds to settle down. She's a very active lizard. And that is okay. She's just trying to figure out what's going on first. I'm going to brush my hair out of the way. There we go. So this is Joanna, and she is a green iguana. Let's show you her scientific name. Oh, it's not there. So she's a green iguana, but the scientific name is very, very easy, and that is iguana iguana. It's probably the easiest scientific name to remember in the world. Iguana iguana, right? She's like really trying to climb up my whole body right now. So green iguanas are green, right? And they are arboreal. We'll let her grab onto my hand and see if she's more comfortable. Let me grab onto my hand. And I've had her for over 10 years. A long time. We'll let her get settled. See those crazy, crazy legs of hers? Look how beautiful she is. Ugh, there we go. She is so beautiful. So she is a female green iguana. Males get about 2 to 3 times the size as an adult. Iguanas all start off the same size and look the same as babies, but as they grow, they change quite a bit. They are a dimorphic animal, meaning that they look very different between males and females. And like I said, size is going to be the main factor in that. And another feature is their cheeks. So male green iguanas have great big giant fat cheeks with great big giant scales on their cheeks. And that is to show off for females. They look really, really handsome for their ladies. And also to help them keep their throat safe from other male green iguanas when they are fighting one another. So male green iguanas do tend to fight for territory and for females. Make sure and scoot over so everybody can see me. There we go. So you can see her. And another difference is going to be some of their spines on her back. So you can see those spines, which are a feature of all green iguanas. But males will have very, very large, more straight spines too. I'm gonna go back to y'all's comments so I can see what y'all are saying. Someone says she's exercising. And yeah, she is very, very large. Oh, I have a question about the tarantulas. More or less, how many species of tarantulas are there? I don't know. I don't know how many species there are, but I know there are many, many species, and that is something I can definitely look up for you and get back to you on that. I will type in your answer later. How's that? I can't remember how many are there. So, green iguanas are very, very common, unfortunately. I say unfortunately in the pet trade. These guys are terrible, terrible animal companions. They are bad pets. Do not get a green iguana. They tend to be very, very aggressive, very, very defensive. So I say aggressive and defensive. You might be thinking, well, that's the same thing. They both can result in a human injury. But it is not the same thing. Aggression means that they're coming after you just because, or because they're aggressive, they're territorial, etc. Defensive means that maybe if you're going to pick up that animal, then they want to defend themselves. So they are both. They are defensive and aggressive. So male green iguanas especially, she's a female, remember? But male green iguanas are very, very territorial. They might come after you for no good reason, other than they are just having lots of hormones and they want to attack everything. Remember, they don't live with other iguanas. They are going to defend their territory. They might live near other iguanas in the wild, but yeah. So not a great pet. Very, very dangerous potentially to humans. They are full of weapons, as I like to say. So let's track back a little bit. A green iguana is from Central and South America. They're going to be mostly from Central America. That's where you're going to see most of them. They're also invasive, meaning that they shouldn't be there, but they are there in Florida. So invasive to Florida as well. Look how pretty she is in that light. She's so pretty. But these guys are highly arboreal, which means they climb trees. You can see how she's climbing on my hand. See how I've kind of like calmed her down by letting her just grip me like a tree? That's going to make her feel a lot more comfortable. And of course, I've been working with this iguana for almost 10 years or so, something like that. It's been a long time. So she knows me. And but these guys are not great. Even with me, she can be kind of defensive. She's not really ever aggressive. She doesn't come after anyone. She's pretty nice for an iguana because of years and years. We don't know how old she is. We got her as an adult already. So she might be, 15 or so, which an iguana only lives into their 20s. So she's already getting up there. Hopefully she'll live in her mid-20s and we'll have her around for a while because we love her. But these guys are defensive, like I said. So even on me, she can be that way. But very arboreal. So they climb trees, they grip onto trees. See their claws? Those claws are incredibly sharp. She does get a nail trim, so that way, and a nail file, that way she doesn't cut me open, because let me tell you what, these guys have razor sharp claws designed for climbing trees. They are arboreal, which means they live in the trees most of the time. Highly arboreal. They like to climb. They like to be up there for safety. That makes her feel better to be up in a tree or up on a branch, something like that. Like I said, they're going to be up in the trees in Central and South America where they're from. They're very tropical. They like it warm, humid, etc. What they do is most of the time they'll be chilling up in a tree, taking a nap, or maybe eating some leaves. Since these guys are herbivores, they eat nothing but plants. And they are eating things like leaves and fruits and flowers. Flowers are their favorite food. It is like candy or whatever your favorite food is. Pizza for me. So pizza is like a flower to or iguana's pizza is a flower. Anyway, so they're up there in the trees. They're hanging out, doing their thing, taking a nap or eating food or going to the bathroom, whatever they may be doing, just being an iguana. And they might be attacked by a predator. So in Central and South America, maybe you guys can think of some predators that might be able to come after an iguana. But in Central and South America, you have things like jaguar. You have things like ocelots. You have things like, what else? What else in Central and South America do we have that might eat an iguana? Cayman. Oh, cayman might be in Central and South America. That's a crocodilian in the water, which iguanas can be found in the water too. They do swim very, very well. But up there in the trees, their main predator is going to be things like predatory birds. So hawks and eagles are their main predator. So if they're hanging up in the trees like this, hanging onto a tree branch, imagine my arm is a tree instead, taking a nap or whatever they're doing, like I said, and a hawk flies over and tries to grab them with their talons, then the iguana can attack back and be defensive. So if you are going to pick up an iguana and they start thinking that you are a predator, because that is their instinct to be defensive, right? By the way, I only have a few more minutes on Instagram, so I'll say goodbye in just a moment. Well, they'll try to defend themselves. The first thing that they're going to do is use their great big giant tail. I'm going to stand up and show you the tail. Look how long that tail is. You can see I'm wearing jeans today. See how long the tail is? It is so long, it doesn't even fit in frame. That tail is like a bullwhip, and they can use it to slap their predators in the face. That is usually going to be enough to make that predator let go, like that hawk. Another thing that they can do is use their spines on their back. That might tickle the feet of a hawk, but it won't be too bad, so that doesn't usually do much. But they will whip with their tail, then they will scratch and claw the predator with their razor-sharp claws. These claws are razor-sharp, if not trimmed, and I'm telling it, like, cut you right open, like hot knife to butter. They're super sharp, and they're great for climbing and great for defense. They also have a ton of teeth in their mouth, which are also razor sharp. So they have teeth, they have claws, they have a bullwhip for a tail, they have spines. So all those things keep them safe in the wild. Now, if they are able to detect a predator before they grabbed, by the way, iguanas have a really cool feature called a third eye. Many lizards have this. It's very hard to see on camera, but it's basically a little clear scale. I've also disturbed her. Oh no. Oh, we're starting all over. She has a clear scale on her top of her head, which doesn't see very well, but it is called the third eye, which will detect shadows. Kind of like the tarantula's eye is actually. It's a very primitive eye, but it's a clear scale that tells her brain that there's shadows and movement flying overhead. That is very handy when you have predators like hawks. So she can actually be fully asleep with her eyes shut like this, having a little iguana nap. And then all of a sudden, a hawk flies over and she can detect it with her third eye, or that scale on top of her head. And then what they will try to do, if they are able to detect the predator ahead of time without being grabbed, they will actually jump out of the tree, usually into a river below. So typically, a iguana will roost in the trees over a river because they can literally dive about 60 feet down. They can dive into the ground and be okay. They're very tough lizards. They can jump into the ground, but ideally they're going to jump into the water, tuck their legs in, use their tail to swim very well, like a fish swims side to side. I can't let her go to show you, but she's going to swim kind of like a snake, and they can get away. And that hawk cannot swim or go into the water. But that is actually where they would run into another predator, which are like caiman. But more commonly, she would get eaten by a hawk or an eagle in the wild. Aren't they incredible? They do. Yvette says, pretty cool. Iguanas have a third eye. That is one woke iguana. Now, iguanas aren't the only lizards with a third eye scale. That's actually a feature of many lizards, but iguanas are one of the more obvious lizards that use them as a defense. Pretty amazing, in my opinion. One of my favorite facts about them. Cutie pie. That helps a lot too if you have a predatory bird flying over you. Well, on Instagram, I'm going to go ahead and close because I'm going to get cut off here in a few minutes. You guys have been a fantastic audience, and it's really good to see all of you. And I hope you have loved learning all about our axolotl, our tarantula, and our iguana. If I didn't say her name is Joanna, the iguana. I've had her for over 10 years, I believe now, maybe even longer. And she's actually a rescue. So these guys make terrible pets. Don't get one, but a lot of them get purchased anyway. And then they end up in reptile rescues and things. But I didn't adopt her from a reptile rescue like I have with some of my other, look at her beautiful green belly. Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. But I was actually walking around a flea market in Florida one day when I lived there a long time ago. And she was just put in a tank with nothing else in it. I think it just had like mulch at the bottom or something. No lights, no nothing. And the person at the flea market said that somebody had dumped her onto them and they didn't know what to do and they didn't know what they were going to do. So I offered a little bit of money to take her off their hands, and I took her home that day, and she's been with me ever since. Pretty cool. But they are very hard to take care of. Not only are they very dangerous, defensive, things like that, and aren't really easy to hold and cuddle with or be a good pet at all. They also need a lot of room. They're a very active lizard, as you saw her moving around a lot. They climb trees, so they like to have an arboreal or vertical setup. They also have to have proper lighting or be kept outdoors. So in the wintertime, she lives inside, and we have, of course, an enclosure for her. But if you can keep an iguana outside, that is also better for them. So anytime it's warm enough, over 60 degrees, she goes outside and lives out there, and she gets natural sun. That is the best thing for her. We also have to give her lots of humidity, so she gets lots and lots of water. She has to soak in water, and she has to get misted and rained on and things like that. So they're very high maintenance. So those of you on Instagram, we're getting ready to close. It's going to be about 30 more seconds remaining. I'm just going to let it close on its own. Look how cute Joanna is being. We hope to see you guys next time here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. I'm just going to keep on going, and we'll see you guys on Instagram next time. Have a wonderful day. This has been Amanda with Once in a Wild. For those of you on Facebook, I'm just going to keep on talking. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I'm not leaving yet on Facebook. Don't you worry, Lydia. I'm still here. I'm going to do a little bit longer and then we'll get going in just a moment. Now, iguanas are wonderful, wonderful animals. I'm not trying to say that they're bad animals or anything like that. They're just not great for an animal companion in your home. I highly, highly recommend something else like a bearded dragon, a leopard gecko, or honestly, almost any other lizard except for an iguana. Iguanas are very, very high maintenance. They do eat a lot of greens. So one good thing about the iguana is they don't eat other animals like insects and meat or anything like that. They are vegetarian. Hang on to me. Like she's just looking for somewhere to go. See how active she is? And if you can imagine, if she were an aggressive iguana, man, I would have like no chance of controlling this animal for program. But luckily, she's actually a very sweet iguana as far as iguanas go. Do you have any questions at all about any of our animals? Somebody else is asking if she was my pet. So she is technically one of my pets that I've had for a long time, but she's graduated to being a working animal, an animal ambassador. So she is an ambassador for her species, and which is a great kind of thing to have because, again, a lot of people don't know some really cool things about common lizards they might see, like iguanas. They also might want one, and I always try to discourage them from getting an iguana because they are not great pets at all. They also live a pretty long time into their 20s, so that's a long commitment to have a lizard that just doesn't like you, isn't easy to pick up, and is very high maintenance and needs a huge enclosure. That's a lot to think about. But they are wonderful lizards, luckily not endangered. They do very, very well in their natural environment. In fact, they're doing so well that they're invasive to Florida and other places where they shouldn't be. So they adapt very, very well to new situations. They do climb trees, like I said. You'll see them most of the time in the trees, and they can also swim. So there are arboreal as well as semi-aquatic. Pretty awesome. Once again, the green iguana is just one type of iguana. And they are, their scientific name is iguana. So they're kind of like the original iguana. See if she wants to look at the axolotl. You guys would actually kind of live in the same environment almost. Oh, look at her looking at the axolotl. They're very curious. So iguanas are very, very smart. She can figure out all kinds of things, how to get out, how to climb up things, how to, kind of like what's going on, where her food is. She certainly knows who I am, and she knows that I bring food. They can even be potty trained, which is kind of fun. Again, I'm not encouraging you guys to get a pet iguana, but what's really cool about iguanas is they like to go to the restroom in water. So outside, sometimes I give her a big pool of water and she will use the restroom in the water when she's soaking herself. And that's what they would do in the wild too. If they don't want to go down, they certainly can go to the restroom in the tree, but they might go down into the water to soak and get a drink and then use the restroom in the water. Lydia's asking, is that as big as she gets? So that is a tricky question when it comes to reptiles because reptiles never stop growing. So technically, no, she might grow a little bit bigger than this, but just a little bit. But since she's an older gal, she is, we don't really know her age, but around 15 is what we guess. And these guys can live into their 20s, like I said. So she's not going to grow too much more. But reptiles never stop growing as long as they're alive, and they shed their skin to grow. That is a very good question. But they do get very, very large. Now, this is a female as well. You can see how big she is if I hold her next to me here. She's a female. A male will be up to 3 times larger than her. That's a huge animal. So the males are very, very big. Ooh, Yvette is asking, where do they descend from? This is the variety that Darwin documented in the Galapagos. So no, this is a totally different species than the one that Darwin discovered in the Galapagos. So this species is related to that animal. So they have similar ancestors, of course. So they are very closely related. They're both iguanas. But the iguana species down there is a different species. They're more of a terrestrial type iguana. So I believe the species that he discovered in the Galapagos, I don't know if there's more than one, but it's the marine iguana. And those guys can actually swim. They're almost fully aquatic. The marine iguana can actually dive into the ocean and eat things underneath the water. Now, they're still vegetarian, just like this iguana, but they're going to eat like algae and seaweed and things like that under the water. They can hold their breath a really long time and go under the water and dive very, very deep and not get the bends like we do as humans, and they can eat their food that way. Isn't that incredible? Now, all iguanas do something really funny when they have to get rid of salt, and she might even do it here. I mean, that would be really cool if she did it on cue. Maybe she'll hear me, and they're smarter than I think they are. But iguanas actually do not absorb salt. They can't expel salt. They can absorb it, but they can't expel salt like we sweat, right? So we sweat out of our sweat glands in our skin, and we expel excess salt that way. So an iguana, if they eat too much salt, like the marine iguana does this a lot. So they're going to be eating a lot of plants that are underneath the ocean. So that's a lot of salt. So in order to expel salt, they will sneeze the salt out of their nose. And she does that every now and then, especially if she's been eating or if I've given her a shower or she's being misted with water or etc. If she's more active than she is right now outside and it's hot or whatever and she's, just being an iguana, she will sneeze. And that is just her expelling excess salt. Isn't that cool? But a marine iguana does that a lot because they're around a lot of salt water. But yeah, that's a different species, but they have a common ancestor for sure. Absolutely, in the iguana family. This is the iguana, original iguana. And again, these guys are Central and South American, not from the Galapagos. I hope that answers your question. And I think that's all the questions that I have so far. You guys are an amazing audience as usual. I'm trying not to go on and on and on forever like I usually do, but I really don't mind. This is always a lot of fun for us because we're not getting out and about to socialize with humans right now, and I really miss it. And so it's really, really fun to talk to you guys and teach you guys about our beautiful animals like Joanna, Gremlin, and Blondie that I brought today. I hope you guys really like the shows that we're doing. Once again, if you have any suggestions of animals or if you have any favorite animal questions, look at her. She's looking down like, what's down there? So inquisitive. Her beautiful eyes. Very, very cool. She has beautiful eyes. Let's look at her eyes. Kind of greenish brown. Gorgeous. And again, Joanna is one of my oldest friends. We've had her for a long, long time. We've had our ups and downs, but she is a pretty cool iguana. I must say so myself. Alrighty, guys. Well, you've been a fantastic audience, and we really appreciate everyone's support. Once again, these shows are free like always, but we do have tipping abilities via Venmo. You can find us at Once in a While on Venmo. You can also find our Amazon wish list, which will help us to take care of our animals through all of this. And if you go to our website, onceinawild.com, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you can see where it says donate to our cause, and that will lead you to our Amazon wish list. I'm going to try to update that today. Look for more videos and fun content all over social media, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok is a new one. We're doing some just kind of fun videos on there. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere. We try to be everywhere. And you can find all of our links there on onceinawild.com, I believe. And she's looking up at the lights too. Very inquisitive. If you guys are interested in having a custom animal encounter, we are currently offering Zoom Room animal encounters via the Zoom app. And I'm actually doing one next week, and I'm really excited to do it because it's a whole bunch of kids in a class. And I'm so excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you guys have kids in homeschool, that's a really good way to teach you guys about animals. They start at 30 minutes, and they can go from 30 minutes, an hour and a half, or 2 hours, or honestly, whatever you guys want. I can help you guys out with a Zoom Room custom animal encounter. I will give you the list of all of our animals, and you can pick what animals you would like to learn about. And it's very interactive. Of course, I can see your faces on Zoom, so it's really, really cool. And we hope you guys like those as well. But give me a call or text. My number's down below, and you can find out how you can get your Zoom animal encounter, okay? In the meantime, you guys stay safe, be well, stay in your shell. We're going to stay in our shell to protect others out there in society. We're trying to do our part in social distancing and making sure that we're healthy and the others are healthy, right? That's very, very important. That's why we're at home and not out in the public right now. When we are ready to go back into the public again, we'll be ready to do live animal encounters once again. And you guys are more than welcome to call or text me to be able to ask me about live animal encounters as well in person. I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you as well. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and let Joanna hang out down below. It's a little bit hard to type and things and use the computer with a handful of iguanas, hands full of iguana, as you might imagine. But I'll go ahead and put her away. She did fantastic. She's such a good girl. Okay, we're going to put her down. Pardon me as I put her away. I'll be right back. As you might imagine, I have to secure her in something very secure. She can escape. And then we would have an iguana in the studio. Not great. But we have a gremlin out here as well, so we'll go ahead and say goodbye. You guys have been fantastic, like I said. I will be doing a follow-up thank you video as well as a quick unboxing of one of our Amazon gifts. Remember, you can find our Amazon wishlist at onceinawild.com. And we'd love to see you guys next time. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. We'll be back on Friday. Oh, it's so sweet. Kristen says, my mom let me say I love your show. Thank you so much for your support. We love all of our friends, family, and followers that follow us, of course. Thank you so very much. And we'll go ahead and close with our theme song, and you guys can say goodbye.
We are nothing but ordinary, going up to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing, once in a while. Once in a while. Say, once in a while. Singing once in a while. Once in a while. Say, once in a while.
All right, guys. Thank you so very much for joining us. We'll see you next time right here at Once in a Wild. Bye. For those of y'all that missed it, this is Amanda. That's me. And this is Once in a Wild. This is an axolotl. His name is Gremlin. And we're getting ready to say goodbye. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.